Hi everyone, this is Kevin from Supernatural Selection. Are you an independent creator? Do you have a webcomic or an Etsy store? Do you 3D print things? Or are you just looking to get some word out for your Discordian cabal with social terrorism? Well, we'd love to help. And David, I believe you've got some details about how we can help.
Why, certainly. If you go to supernaturalselectionpod.com/contact, that is supernaturalselectionpod.com/contact, you can learn how to advertise with us.
That's right. I believe the rate is $2 per episode. You can't beat that with a stick.
I mean, trust me, we've tried.
Yeah, that's cheap. That's literally cheaper than dirt.
And best of all, if you're not sure how to write an ad, we'll do it for you. We'll even record it.
Absolutely. Just let us know what you need in the ad, and we'll be happy to do that for you.
And again, that URL is supernaturalselectionpod.com/contact.
And now, back to the show. And a good old cough to get all that going there. Hello and welcome to Supernatural Selection. I'm your host, Kevin. With me this week are Mike the Skeptic. Mike, how are you?
I'm full of chicken tikka masala.
That's good. I don't know why the term shit vindaloo popped into my head, and that's completely unrelated, but like that just popped into my head.
Of the things to be full of, I would say chicken tikka masala is probably one of the better things to be full of.
Yes.
Oh, definitely. I'm jealous because I'm full of like
soup.
Yeah, I had like a Walmart Santa Fe chicken salad, so. Yeah.
Well, speaking of that Walmart salad, the devourer of that is Mr. David Davis. David, how are you doing?
I am full of Walmart Santa Fe chicken salad. No, I'm doing well. Got to play D&D this week. Tomorrow is our Fallout RPG session. And
cool.
There was a new Backrooms video today. I'm very excited. It was fun. It was like a fun 45 minutes. I'm excited. It's good stuff.
Okay. I didn't know there was a series.
I think that we should probably... So I have an idea for a series, and we'll talk about that as we always do, because I always have ideas for series. But,
Liminal spaces, I'm guessing?
More like modern myth making. Because we can talk about so like Slender Man, for example, because there is kind of like a power that people give these things. And the Backrooms is one of those memes that has been given kind of like cultural relevance and association. So yeah, just a little hint at stuff that I'm thinking about.
Yeah. And so we're going to put the sausage maker back up. And so, quick word on housekeeping. First off, if you enjoy this show, please tell friends or family or whoever you think might enjoy it about it.
Yeah.
That is probably the single best way that we get spread like a disease. So, again, if you enjoy the show, tell someone about it.
Yeah,
tell them it's fun.
If you identify a creepy person who seems like they would enjoy this, like, let them know, hey, look, there's a show for you.
Yeah, as long as they're not, like, following someone.
Yeah.
Tell them about the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What else we got, David?
Well, the zine is still coming together. This is our first zine project, and there's been a little bit of a delay. We just asked for, like, grace and patience. Like, I think we got until the end of the month. I don't know if we're going to do the crowdfunding thing for it. I think we're just going to go ahead and release it.
Okay.
But we can always plan for that another time. But, yeah, I want to get it out there into the hands of all the little ghouls and goblins.
Well, what we can do is we'll do another one sometime and, like, plan to do, like, a big glossy magazine-style version.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, okay. That's our plan.
This is the proof of concept. This is showing, like, hey, we can do this. There's an audience. There is a group of participants. Let's bring it forward.
Yeah. And just because we're not charging, if you have submitted to the zine and you get the PDF, feel free to print it out and charge for it.
Absolutely.
You did the work.
Yeah, absolutely. We encourage anyone to, like, if they want to print it out and if they want to sell it at a convention, we're going to have, like, a blank page in the back for, like, sketches and stuff. So if you're a cartoonist or an artist, or you want to do something like that for people who buy it, then absolutely go for it.
Yep. Mike, you got any housekeeping?
Yeah, I gotta clean my bathroom, and
you just say that every time, and that bathroom is still not clean.
I know.
Another one for the bingo card.
God damn.
Well, we have a house guest coming, so I kind of need to do it tonight. At least do like a little bit like of tidying and degrossifying.
Degross.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm a single guy, so there's not a whole lot of impetus to
the scrubbing bubbles are gonna have to work a little overtime.
Yes.
Yep. So, Mike, I'm excited about this one this week because we're going to be talking about Fallout.
Right, okay. And on this show of all shows?
I was going to say, this is the wrong show for that.
Oh, not this time, buddy. David, why don't you tell him about it?
Like a round peg in a square hole, I made it fit. So, we're...
there's a will, there's a way.
Violently and with a hammer.
Yeah, with a little, like, carving. I took a little knife out and started, like, shaving off sides of it. Yeah.
You did some whittling.
I did some whittling. This week's episode is a bit of departure from previous episodes we've done, except for a rather early one. In the first year of the show, I had written a 3-part episode that looked at the crossover of cryptids and film when we talked about The Legend of Boggy Creek.
Right, yes. Yeah. And we all know my dad's love of that movie.
Mm-hmm. Now, that series of episodes specifically was about the history of the Falcon Monster sightings while covering the creation of the film The Legend of Boggy Creek, which is probably the singular text that has come to define that specific cryptid.
And, I also feel like that series was sort of the birth of what we could consider the actual podcast as we know it today, in a way. It's when we really started going into the research, because you did so much research on that. I was like, well, I guess I better bring more of an A game. So this is all your fault.
No, and I appreciate that. But yeah, I was doing that back with the Kentucky Goblins too.
That's true.
Yeah, but it's funny. I had intended this one to be like a nice little jaunt, just we're gonna do maybe an hour and a half, and then it turned out to be 43 fucking pages.
God damn it, David.
That's just how this shit works, man. So, on that note, we've had some discussions on and off about other episodes looking at that kind of crossover of our favorite weird subjects and how they're handled in pop culture. I always kind of bring up movies or films or video games where there are these connections. But going deeper, for example, we've thrown around looking at Ghostbusters a few times.
Oh, right.
Yeah, especially because so much of the film comes from Dan Aykroyd's fascination with the supernatural. So, parascience theories are found all over the movie.
Yeah, but do you guys really want me to point out that he got the year of Tunguska wrong in that movie?
That's the whole point of the episode.
God damn it.
So no...
It was 1908. Mm-hmm. It was 1908, not 1909. Get it right or pay the price.
Yeah, you sound like a real Venkman Ray. The sponge migrated about a foot. So this isn't that Ghostbusters episode, but it's akin to it. Instead, I was inspired to look at a hyperfixation we've discussed for several episodes in a row on our other show, The Distraction Hole. Today, we're going to look at how cryptids and aliens are handled in the Fallout franchise. In the words of BoJack Horseman, what is this, a crossover episode?
And again... Everyone I know has told me, you should never watch that show, Kevin. You specifically should never watch BoJack Horseman.
No, you should not.
Well, I don't have any desire to see it either. I mean, I don't know. I hate to say that, it's the aesthetics, but it's the aesthetics. I mean, if I'm going to watch something, I don't want it to be ugly.
It's a good show. Fair. It's a good show, but for me, my concern is the tone and the darkness of the show, and Kevin's delicate and important to me, and I don't want him to be hurt.
Oh, thank you, Daddy.
Yeah, no problem, baby.
Oh, God. I didn't mean it like that. Fuck.
Oh, did you mean Daddy?
Dad, how's that?
There we go. Oh, Dad. Those are my initials. Anyway.
You cannot... Dad is not a sexy term.
Yeah.
Just saying. Nobody ever just call me Dad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you gotta say the daddy. It can't be just dad.
Call me Dad.
Yeah. No.
Call me Pop.
Oh, God.
The very fact that you call it Pop tells me you're not ready. Woo, Arrested Development reference. All right. Anyway, let's keep going. As for sources, principally we'll be pulling from our experience playing the games. I think all three of us have played a lot of different Fallout games. Occasional references to YouTube gameplay clips and game wikis for further details, but that's just for like the Fallout side of things, right? For the history of these cryptids and aliens, well, you can't see me as this is a podcast, but I am frantically gesturing to this whole show we do. We've covered many of these cryptids and alien before, and we have plenty of research we've pulled together from those episodes. I mean, Kevin has trained his whole life to talk about weird shit. He was born for this.
I was.
Now, of course, there are some things we haven't discussed before that are going to be brought up here, and I like to drop in the sources when I can. You'll also find links to our sources in the episode script, which you can check out on this very episode if you click the Google Doc link.
Right, and I just want to say, me and Mike haven't played a lot of Fallout 76. We played some. And while I have not played a lot of that, I want to give the Epic Nate's YouTube channel a shout out. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his videos, David.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, yeah, he does deep dives on Fallout and Elder Scrolls lore, and it's gotten me at least partly familiar with a lot of this, so if you want to learn about, the worlds of Fallout and Elder Scrolls, that would be where you go. Just look up the Epic Nate. You will find him.
I think he also did a series of videos specifically on, like, here's a town in Fallout 76, here's a complete history of that town.
Yeah. Also, he is referenced in Fallout 76. Like, there's a reference in, like, some letter about Nate and his theories.
Yeah, and it's great because Fallout 76 is very much a reactive version of the franchise right now because it is still currently updating, and that TV show really gave the whole franchise a shot in the arm. So,
Mike, do you have a specific problem with 76 right now?
No, it's just I mean, I like 4, and 76 is just like 4.5. Multiplayer.
Like, for me, I've been playing a lot of 76 because I love the setting. We'll talk about that. But, I burned myself out, playing 2 seasons in a row of just, grinding the scoreboard to get the different items and shit like that. And I was just like, no, I'm taking a break for a little bit.
That's a little much for me.
Yeah, I fell hard into, the whole, scoreboard element of it. But, let's talk a little bit about Fallout, because, a lot of our audience probably knows what Fallout is, but a good portion of them probably do not.
If you're like a customer of the store and you just discovered this podcast, here's some background.
Yeah, so the nature of how cryptids and aliens are handled in Fallout is this strange combination of actual mid-20th century American history combined with a post-atomic sci-fi horror. We'll see an interesting dichotomy emerge between aliens and cryptids in this series as we move through the episode. So, while we're going to look at Fallout as a whole, a lot of the material we're going to discuss will come from the Bethesda and Obsidian era of the series, namely Fallout 3, New Vegas, Fallout 4, and specifically Fallout 76. That said, some elements have existed since Fallout 1 and 2, but they weren't really developed to any real degree until Fallout 3.
Now, here's a fun fact that Mike can probably back me up or correct me on. Obsidian was at least founded by former employees of Black Island, which is the guys that made Fallout 1 and 2.
That's what I kind of remember.
Yeah, and they came back and did New Vegas. So,
yeah.
So they also did the Outer Worlds, which is fantastic.
I haven't gotten a chance to play that, but I am super intrigued. Now, there's going to be a lot of Fallout 76 here, specifically as its unique setting and cryptid focus lended it a distinct flavor and introduce a lot of interesting concepts. So, Fallout is a franchise that has been beloved by gamers since 1997 or so. I wouldn't say it was particularly niche, but the series was definitely of a certain hardcore RPG era prior to Fallout 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this definite tonal shift between the first two games developed by or published by Interplay, and then later entries that were, developed by Obsidian and Bethesda.
And there is a very vocal group that still says anything after Fallout 2 by Bethesda isn't actually Fallout. Like, these are the diehard guys that want Van Buren to actually still be released. Mm-hmm. Mike, what are those guys called? Like, they have a website?
It was, oh shoot, what is it? Like,
is it No Mutants Here or No More Mutants?
I think it was No More Mutants, something like that.
Yeah.
That's a website back from the isometric Fallout
mm-hmm.
days. And when, Bethesda got the license and started making the 3D Fallouts, they were just not having it.
Yeah. So the Fallout of today is kind of this like first/third person role-playing game shooter mashup. The first two Fallout games were isometric RPGs.
They're basically like Diablo, but
Fallout, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Fallout.
The original game concept was spun off from Steve Jackson Games' GURP tabletop system. However, any plans for Fallout being part of GURPS would kind of like fall through, and Fallout would use a heavily modified version of GURPS that would go by Special, that forms the background of a lot of the role-playing elements of the series, even through to today.
Now, Mike, you probably noticed this. The skills and perks in Fallout, right?
Yeah.
That's very similar to the advantages, disadvantages, and quirks in the GURPS system. Yeah. So it's obviously still got the spirit of GURPS in there. So
I was always surprised that there was never, when I first started playing Fallout, there was no tabletop RPG of it. But then, when I found out more, I was like, oh, it's because it was based on a tabletop RPG.
Yeah. Fallout is basically fan fiction, I get. Well, not necessarily fan fiction, but like a fan remix of an existing game system.
It's homebrew.
So Fallout is to GURPS as what's the name of that? Pathfinder is to D&D.
Sure.
Yeah. No, yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
It's like 3.7 instead of 3.5 D&D. Yeah.
So one of the things that makes Fallout kind of beloved is that it's a great example of a like true conceptual sandbox where you can do just about anything and make it work within the context of the setting.
Right.
Now, the genre of the series might best be described as post-atomic apocalyptic horror adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, horror is all over Fallout.
Yes.
Like, yeah, super mutants,
it's
cannibals.
Also satire.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely satire is in there as well. Although, like, the satire wasn't necessarily, from what I've gathered, kind of watching, like, documentaries and stuff like that on the history of Fallout, like, the satire wasn't meant to be, like, the forefront of it.
They were still trying to tell a good story.
Yeah, but like it was around Fallout 3 that like the satirical elements, at least from what I've gathered, just really kind of.
I think that's up for debate, but we're just gonna move on.
Oh yeah, no, that's fair. Like again, like we could do an entire hour talking about just the game history.
We have,
yes, we have, yes. So this is a series where most of the games take place decades after an atomic holocaust that's like scorched and scarred the surface of the United States. A setting where intense radiation, genetic experimentation, and chemical exposure has created mutant creatures and monstrosities. It's a setting where pockets of civilizations rise and fall in the wasteland, and the only constant being the eternal struggles of survivors and raiders. In a phrase pulled from the opening narration of the games themselves, war never changes.
No, you gotta say it right. War never changes.
War never changes. So, like you can kind of see already, like, man, a lot of different things can be done with that setting.
Yeah.
So there's another little wrinkle to this. So one thing to note here is that the apocalyptic future of the 22nd century and beyond, as depicted in most of the games, emerges from an alternate history. So
I found that fascinating when Mike pointed it out to me.
Yeah, so by the 2070s in the game series, America had been engaged in a Cold War for over a century with China, and the atomic age ideals of the 50s and 60s never really changed either, resulting in nuclear power being the dominant form of energy in American society. Just like that 1950s, 1960s atomic age just carrying through into the 2000s and beyond.
Imagine clip art come to life.
Now,
it's America. It's if America had never like fucked up in like Korea and Vietnam.
Yeah.
But people lost faith in the government.
But then fucks up in even more tragic ways.
Well, yeah, but you know,
look where it ends.
But people were drinking the Kool-Aid by then, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and just being able to kind of like look at like what was going on, like because I wanted to talk about like the inflation of the pre-war society where like a dozen donuts is like $200.
God damn.
Yeah, it's just crazy shit. So I could talk for hours about the fun alternative history of the U.S. and Fallout, but that's not really the topic of the episode. Just imagine like the 1950s mindset and aesthetic lasted until the 2070s, and every nation on Earth bombed the shit out of each other.
Now, this is, of course, the style is what they call of that era is what they call retrofuturism, but it's also something I discovered called culture locked, where you take a setting from a past part of the culture and you lock it in and move it forward. Like, I really wanted to do that with one of my comics with the 80s. Like, do it now, but the aesthetic stayed with, like, between 1979 and 1985.
And yeah. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say that that's kind of a little unrealistic because, trends rise and fall. I'd say it'd be more realistic to do, like, a resurgence of that aesthetic and trend.
Kind of like what they did with Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Well, and then
I get it, but
another thing is like the thing that I like about Fallout is that it's not just doing like the fins on the cars and the kind of the rounded bubble tops and everything like that, but it's also looking at the darker aspects of the 50s and 60s. Like the jingoism, the conspiracy, the Red Scare. And it continues that trend and like takes it to its zenith that results in like the destruction of the world.
I don't know. I would say that if the jingoism and Russophobia had continued from the 60s to the 2070s, the world would be a lot more fucked up than the Fallout world.
I don't know. In the Fallout world, we fought a war against China on the moon. So, like, I'm just...
Yeah, I know that.
Which is badass.
But I think there would, I think we would have already nuked each other before then in a realistically,
timeline. Yes.
Like, I don't want to get into this, but then there's also the aspect of, like, this hyper-capitalism. Everything has lead and asbestos in it. People are paranoid. They're reporting on each other. Like, there's a lot going on in the background of this. And again, this is all, like, backdrop for the video game, right? Like, this isn't...
Watch the TV show if you want more details.
It's basically, you only get that really in color commentary from, like, computer terminals and, history.
You pop the holotape into your Pip-Boy and some guy is, like, giving you his last moments.
Yeah, it's not really comes up in the game like mainline narrative.
Yeah. A lot of these are details you pick. Like, so for example, in Fallout 4, when you go by gas stations, you see the price for hydrogen and like oil, because oil is still an element of all of this. But like everybody has a fucking nuclear reactor in the back of their car, and that's why when a car explodes, it's a little nuclear reaction.
Yeah,
it's a mushroom cloud.
It's great when you're having a firefight around a bunch of cars and you forget about that. And then all of a sudden you hear like, I forget the sounds it makes, but you can hear a distinctive sound coming from the car like, oh crap.
Yeah, no, your rad meter clicks.
Yeah, that's right. Your rad meter starts going off.
Yeah.
You start running, but by then it's too late and you're caught up in the nuclear explosion of the car. And then that, of course, if it's a bunch of cars, it sets off all the other cars around it.
And you're dead.
So it's just this little chain reaction of mini nukes going off around you.
Yeah, and then like all the fucking nuclear waste that is pre-war that it was just buried in places and jammed into tunnels and under cities.
Or you just come across a like tractor trailer truck and the trailer's full of nuclear barrels.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is all pre-war.
And you think you're gonna find like some neat shit because a lot of these trailers do have some good stuff, and you jump in there and your rad meter just spikes all the way to the top, and you're like, "Oh fuck!"
And then you check in the back anyway, and there's a teddy bear wearing glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's just nothing there.
It's taking the worst of the 1950s and 60s and just like amplifying it, and just like say society doesn't progress except like the need for more stuff, the need for consumption increases. What happens?
I mean, come on, they had robot horses for their kids, so how bad was it?
Giddy up, Buttercup.
I want one.
Yeah, like again, like the three of us could talk for hours about the stuff. So, the whole reason I bring up the background of the game is because the series is based to some degree on real history. Prior to the 1950s, 1960s, it diverges greatly, but there is still centuries of history that we share with that setting of the series. To that end, themes of aliens and monsters also exist in this setting, and have become recurring motifs within. Now, we're going to look at the unique ways Fallout approaches these kinds of things as we explore the things that we explore on the show, and what kind of meaning or significance we can draw from their approach to these entities.
So I have, before you go on, I want to ask specifically, do you have anything about, Bethesda as a company and how that relates to the setting?
So I do think that Bethesda is playing more into the satirical element of everything.
Well, I mean, just like as their location.
Oh, right.
Because they are located, right near the Smoky Mountains.
Yeah, this is kind of their backyard.
It's a lot of this stuff happens in their backyard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of cryptid, stuff. I just wanted to bring that up. That when I was on vacation, we kind of passed by like within a mile or two of the Bethesda headquarters.
Yeah, and like as I was going through and kind of researching the development history of a lot of this stuff, like you see with every cryptid, they're like, oh, we're trying to figure out a way to work this in.
Yeah.
It was just something about Appalachia, like, just like clicked for him. And it's honestly my favorite setting. And we'll talk a little bit about that because I know that Kevin has an observation about that. But let's go ahead and let's talk about some of these cryptids. What do you think?
No, we're not going to do that.
Let's just talk about shit we found in Fallout.
No, we're gonna play Fallout. That's what we're gonna play.
All right. So before we begin, we should note that the cryptids have existed as a concept in American culture for centuries now. We only call them cryptids today because that has kind of been the term that has become most accepted to describe them.
Pop culture, the internet in particular, has really branded almost everything paranormal as a cryptid. Yeah,
many of these creatures we're going to talk about have been said to have lurked in the shadows and wilderness of the continent as monsters of myth and legend. So, there's a rich history prior to all of this stuff, right?
Right.
Oh yeah, there were the supernatural, like you said, the myths and legends of the land.
Mm-hmm. So we'll be focusing specifically on cryptids that, like we have reports and rumors of today. Like the series itself has its own creatures that you could probably consider cryptids that are unique to the setting at various points, like such as the iconic Deathclaw. To a degree, the Deathclaw would have been seen as a cryptid, especially in like Fallout 1. They're so
when it was rare.
Yeah, they're so common in the gameplay now, not so much. But there are other creatures that you could say are like, oh yeah, that's a cryptid, but that's not based on like folklore. You know what I mean?
Like the Nightkin from New Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. Which also kind of tie into the Wendigo, but specifically for our purposes, we want to look at creatures that have or may eventually cover on this show.
Right.
Makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, based on a rough count, there are around 15 cryptids and monsters that have been referenced to or appear in the gameplay of the Fallout franchise that we could say may exist in our world. It depends on whether or not you believe cryptids exist, but like there were at least 15 that I counted.
Stuff that's based on cryptids in the wild, as it were.
Yeah. We're not going to cover all of them, but we're at least going to kind of do like a greatest hits here. So for things that are just like mentioned, like the jackalope, chupacabra, or Loch Ness monster, we're not going to be really examining those too closely. And some of the other creatures fit into a larger archetype of cryptid, which I'll kind of bring up as well. So let's start with the most iconic. Like if you were to name like the top, maybe not the most iconic, but one of the most iconic. Like if you were to name the top 3 cryptids that like most people would know about, what would they be?
Mike?
I mean, Bigfoot.
Yep.
Yeah, Bigfoot and its derivatives would definitely fill a slot. What else?
Ass-play enthusiast Mothman?
Yeah, Mothman's definitely become like an internet darling, and then like what might be a third one?
I mean, it depends if you consider aliens a cryptid or not.
Chupacabra.
Yeah, so aliens, I think we could kind of fit them under there. You also maybe could have said like the Jersey Devil. I think a lot of people have heard of the Jersey Devil.
Well, there is a sports team named after him.
Yeah, exactly. If you're starting a sports franchise, name your team after a cryptid. Like that just seems like a smart move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and start with the Mothman. So
of course,
the Mothman, of course, kicked off the show that we did. We've covered the Mothman several times on the show. We love getting a good Mothman story for Week in Weird. Probably one of the most iconic cryptids around, especially now. I think if you were to like compare the Sasquatch and the Mothman, I think the Mothman would be the more popular cryptid. Especially
at the moment.
Yeah, especially because of the internet. For those of us who do not remember the situation with the Mothman, I think Kevin can do a good job on filling us in on the basics.
Right. So, for a third time, the Mothman showed up in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in late 1966 to cuckold a bunch of teenagers making out at the old TNT plant, and then proceeded to herald both a massive UFO flap and the collapse of the Silver Bridge before Christmas of that year. He may have either been a large species of crane or a guy in a gorilla suit with a Dracula cape.
Or to play Jersey Devil's advocate, maybe an actual moth-human hybrid.
Oh, yes, obviously, but I mean, as for explanations.
Yeah.
I mean, how's a human gonna fuck a moth, or a moth gonna fuck a human to make a hybrid?
I don't know, but the Japanese have probably made a video about that.
And then the Brazilians, perfected it.
So, as for Fallout, the majority of Mothman references and appearances in the franchise occur in the latest game of the series, Fallout 76. That game, taking place around 25 years after the initial fallout of the bombs, is set in Appalachia. Now, we could talk all day about why this is such a key setting for the kind of cryptid weirdness the game pursues. For my money, Appalachia has proven to be my favorite setting in the series.
Now, here's the thing, real quick. I just think it's weird how pristine the environment looks in that game. It's so lush.
It's pristine in, one area. Everywhere else is kind of a fucking nightmare.
Okay,
partially,
that shows you how little I've played.
Partially because, the Blue Ridge Mountains, really sheltered a good portion of the forest area where you start. Yeah, you head directly south. The ash heap is nothing but irradiated fires burning constantly. The cranberry bogs to the southeast are just this nightmare of giant irradiated bats. And then the swamp, there's giant salt flats and radiation. Radiation's everywhere, but salt flats to the north and to the northeast, there's just a dank ass swamp. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
my bad.
Yeah, no, the forest is very nice, and that's why a lot of people were settling there in the game. But also, it wasn't so pretty in the area either.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, the events at Point Pleasant in the 1960s, including the collapse of the Silver Bridge, are all canon events in Fallout. Point Pleasant is a location that you can visit in the game, and the iconic Mothman statue we've mentioned several times on the show can also be found in-game.
I want to go, and I want to put beans.
Well, yeah, there's no room for the beans because there's so many Mothman eggs.
They can eat the beans.
There you go. With that said, the Mothmen, plural, that we see in the game are not the same Mothman that is referenced in the pre-war history of the setting. As we'll see with all the cryptids we're covering today, the creatures we see in Fallout that are named for pre-war cryptids are the result of like post-war mutation or genetic engineering. With the Mothmen of Fallout 76, these are quite literally gigantic mutated moths. They have a breeding population indicated by clutches of eggs that you can pick up and cook into a delightful omelet.
Now, let me ask, was Dr. Weird involved in their creation in any way?
Gentlemen!
Well, I mean, New Jersey is involved with Fallout 76, so it's entirely possible Dr. Weird might be part of this.
Yeah, Dr. Weird, I don't know why we're doing this down here.
Giant breeding moths. So...
My metal boy!
It's, so yeah, number one, like this... The idea of this, like, Mothman having, like, a breeding population is, number one, something that's much different than...
Yeah,
right? So, the species itself looks to be about 5 or 6 feet tall, which is terrifying to think about.
Yeah. It's a 5-foot fucking moth.
Yeah. You know, even though they're little lamp lovers, often fuzzy, like, they can still be creepy. Like, have you ever seen one, like, get close to you?
Yep.
Now, when you run into them in the wild, they tend to kind of like swaddle themselves within their wings. It's very cute. They have large, round, glowing eyes of different colors, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Now, it kind of makes them look like the famous silhouette when they do that, right?
Yes. It kind of has that kind of like dome-ish shape with like the large eyes and the antennas coming out and everything like that. Now, they are, for the most part, harmless observers of humanity. Often watching players from a distance and then taking off in a cloud of dust when you get too close. With that said, they can also be hostile when provoked, and the dust clouds that emerge from their wings are likely a powdery neurotoxin. There is a Mothman, there's a Mothman Equinox event in the game where you get high off Mothman dust.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah. So like, they, for the most part, they seem harmless, but like nothing is freakier than just kind of wandering in the dark woods of Appalachia in the game and then just hearing the poof and seeing the Mothman appear behind you and then poof, disappearing again.
Just it's like a slightly less freaky version of the Enderman.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like there's a lot of mood to Fallout 76, which I appreciate. So something that I find fascinating about the Mothman in this game is that there has been an emergence of religion centered around the creature.
I have been saying for years, the statue and the beans, that's what this is leading to.
Yeah, and this religious kind of fervor has splintered into 2 distinct orders. Now, in Fallout 76, you can travel to the Mothman Museum in Point Pleasant, a location... Like, the city itself is just swarming with Mothman cultists. You'll find little cultist camps all over Appalachia, but, like, Point Pleasant has been locked down by the Mothman cult. Now, in the museum basement, you can find evidence of a pre-war cult through records. A cult which only grew in the decades following the bombs and these giant mutant moths emerging. Now... The evidence present in the game about this cult also connects to another subject we may cover in the future, MKUltra.
Oh boy.
In pre-war Fallout's USA, there was a program called the Somnus Initiative that shares a lot of similarities to MKUltra, and inevitably conspiracy theorists of the setting would draw parallels between the Somnus Initiative and the pre-war Mothman encounters, just as some conspiracies in our world have tried to tie the Mothman to the very real MKUltra project.
But not the chemicals leaking from the TNT plant.
No, that would be too rational.
Or the coal chemicals from mining.
Yeah, and you can go to the TNT domes.
Yeah, I know. There's these neat domes.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like, I found the TNT domes. I was like, oh, hey, cool. Maybe I'll see a Mothman out here. I didn't see a Mothman out there, but, like,
That's sad.
Yeah. Now, all of this is kind of what drew me into exploring this game series for an episode. The way that, like, Fallout, the Fallout setting takes these cryptids and belief in them, and then makes them a reality in the setting as a result of human hubris and technology. Now, as for the two cults of Mothmen, we need to go back to just before the Great War, the Atomic War. By the 2070s, a cult of the Mothman would emerge, and on October 22nd, 2077, which October 23rd, 2077 is an important date in Fallout, that is the day the bombs drop. So on October 22nd, the cult attempted to summon the Mothman, and one Brother Charles, claiming to have seen their patron in a vision, said that the Mothman was warning them of a flood. So...
little off.
Yeah, well, the cultists take to the rooftops of Point Pleasant, and on October 23rd, a flood arrives in the form of nuclear fallout. So the cultists would then make their way to a local mine, and then they would remain there until the time was right to re-emerge and retake Point Pleasant. Now, I'm not going to go deep into the lore of what happened beyond the fact that the cult split into two groups. One group fled the mines and the state of West Virginia, following that same Brother Charles, who apparently had communed with the Mothman. They would follow what they call the Wise Mothman, a seemingly benevolent, purple-eyed, singular Mothman.
I want a chick track of the Wise Mothman, like done in the style of the Good Morty.
Like, how many layers of parody are we aiming for here?
A lot.
I just don't like the kind of subtext that he communed with the Mothman. That seems...
It didn't say you laid with the Mothman.
Communed is more than just having a chat.
Like knowing someone in the biblical sense?
Maybe.
Well,
I mean, I'm just saying it's open to questioning.
Well,
like they are soft and furry.
Well, and here's the thing. Like, you in the game can commune with the Mothman. Because there is an event where you summon the Wise Mothman, and he will come down, and he will grant you a blessing. And then there's a seasonal event where you retake the city of Point Pleasant, and you try to reclaim it for the cult of the Wise Mothman for a little bit. And again, the Mothman shows up, comes down, poof, and it gives you an XP buff. It's great.
I bring love.
Yeah, no, like
brings love, break its legs.
Yeah, like there's even like a Mothman worship emote in your inventory. God. Yeah, so it's like this cool little dance your character does, including like flapping their arms like wings. It's great. So
okay.
Yeah, so every time I do the Mothman event, I always do like the little dance because it's great.
I hate that I'm not playing this game.
It really is a lot of fun. But so. The other group that would emerge later and spread throughout the larger Appalachia was a more violent sect known as the Followers of the Winged One, who worship Mothmen with red eyes. Now, by the time the player character emerges from the vault in like the early 2100s, feral Mothmen and cultist sites can be found all over the region. Like, they're just all over the place. You can see, like, they have their iconography and everything like that. It's all quite well developed as a design thing.
Right.
Now,
I love how all cultists seem to have, like, a graphic designer that joins.
Yeah, that's a sign of a good cult.
Yeah, like Scientology.
Yeah, I mean, they have the website skills.
Gotta have that, bling to draw people in.
A cult needs a good symbol for a t-shirt.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, why do you think Christians, are so dominant? Because of that damn cross.
Well, it's better than the fish,
right? So players can find pockets of the Followers of the Winged One cultists tending to Mothman nests, and there are periodic events to commune with the Wise Mothman, indicating some kind of holy war and territorial struggle between these factions, represented by their worship of these giant irradiated moths. That's Fallout,
God
baby.
Damn it.
That's
God
Fallout.
Damn it.
I fucking love this setting, dude, so much.
I know.
So, what we have here is an existing cryptid in the setting whose likeness and name has been transplanted onto this new post-atomic creature. This is a theme that's going to kind of run through all of the cryptids we're going to talk about. Could there have been an actual Mothman prior to the atomic war that destroyed the USA? Like, maybe. At least there's just as much of a chance of that being true in that setting as it is in our real life. It's a possibility. But what do you guys think about the Fallout approach to the Mothman here?
Well, considering how Fallout's like radiation is all magic anyway, sure. I mean, why couldn't it have, there being an existing Mothman that it like magically Sailor Mooned into,
the wise Mothman?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a thought. What if the wise Mothman is the actual Mothman?
That's one thing that I had thought about, but like, given the way that cryptids are handled in the setting, it seems like none of these things like actually existed. They were just folklore until you get these horrific radiated creatures that we then call these things.
Well, maybe. But the statue wouldn't have. I mean, the folklore exists. If the folklore existed of Mothman, that means there had been sightings before the bombs.
Right. But that doesn't mean that like the Mothman actually existed, because we have people who've claimed sightings of the Mothman. We have a fucking Mothman statue in Point Pleasant. Does that mean that the Mothman exists?
So are you claiming the Mothman doesn't exist nowadays,
David?
I don't know. That's the thing. But you see where I'm going with. I'm going here. Unlike the aliens, which we'll get to.
Yeah, but I personally think it's neat. I just like when something this mainstream throws something I used to read about in a dark corner of the library out into the public for people to shoot at with a 10mm pistol.
Yeah, no, like it's so fucking fun, dude. As far as the cryptid focus of Fallout 76 goes, I think it gives the game a unique flavor among the other entries beyond just gameplay differences. I also appreciate that this is the earliest period of the setting we explore, and it is kind of this nebulous period where a lot of conventions of the games later in the timeline are established. Like, okay, we have Mothman all over this game. What happens with that cult 200 years down the line? We just don't know, because the latest game in the series is technically earliest in the timeline. Maybe Fallout 5 will establish that the cult of the Mothman spread. I mentioned that I'm doing a Fallout tabletop game with some folks. My character is Initiate Murph, spelled like it sounds. He is a Brotherhood of Steel initiate, but not really. He's actually a former Mothman cultist. So he's got a big shitty Mothman tattoo on his back.
Oh God.
Yeah. That's and I'm extremely racist
like
against
Ben
robots.
Affleck's dragon tattoo.
Yeah, exactly. Red dragoning it.
I guess they had to pick a cryptid because all the other Fallout games, the Bethesda Fallout games, had the Cult of the Atom, and this is just kind of too soon.
Yeah.
For the Cult of the Atom, so they came up with a cryptid cult.
And that's a very good point. And my hope is that if Fallout 5 gets announced, I'm sure it'll get announced at some point. I hope that some of these cryptid elements of Appalachia carry on. I think the Mothman makes a good addition to the weirdness of the setting. It doesn't seem particularly out of place here. You know what I mean?
Right. I kind of doubt that we'll see Mothman in another one, but I would love to see more regional cryptids put in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And I think that's definitely an approach going forward. But of all the cryptids introduced in 76, I think the Mothman might be the most interesting, because you have that cult that left West Virginia. So, who knows? Maybe they headed out west or something like that.
Right, yeah. And it's just neat.
Yeah, and we don't know what happens to most of Appalachia in the 2200s. A lot fucking happened in 20 years in the setting, because there was a whole thing with giant irradiated bat disease. And then you get
that's a real thing. The bat disease, that is an actual fungus growing on bats. Because every time I've gone to a cave system, there are warnings: if you've been near infected bats, you can't go in.
Yeah, and this is a 30-foot wide wingspan bat that blasts radiation and then mutates people into ghouls who develop crystals. A lot of shit going
what
on.
The fuck?
How does that play out in the future of Fallout? I'm curious about that.
Hell, I know.
Yeah. I hope we get to see that stuff, but like I'm glad that it exists at least in this game because it's
Right.
become my favorite setting. It's weird enough. It fits into everything that I love. So yeah, let's talk about another one of these regional cryptids.
Okay.
The Uga. So
I was under the impression I've heard it pronounced Yuga.
it could be Yuga. Again, I'm not, from bumfuck
But we'll
West
go with
Virginia.
Uga. It's your episode.
Yeah, like I'll pronounce it Yuga then. This is one we've not mentioned on the show before. I don't think we've never mentioned this one. The Yuga, sometimes known as the Reevesville monster or Holt monster, is a freshwater cryptid, which is such a weird distinction to make.
Yeah.
Well, you got your freshwater cryptids, you got your saltwater cryptids. But
no, I love it.
It's one that has been said to roam the Ohio, Allegheny, and Monongahela. I don't know how to pronounce that one.
Good enough.
Yeah, rivers.
Monongahela. Yeah.
The creature is rumored to be a giant alligator snapping turtle that, according to some reports, may be like 50 feet long and over like 500 pounds. Some legends suggest it may even have 2 heads.
Now, this is the first one we've mentioned that I actually encountered in Fallout 76 once, and it destroyed me.
Yeah, no, it's great. Just stumbling onto these things is like a great experience.
But then again, 2 Raiders on a Hill also destroyed me because I suck at the game.
Oh yeah,
so, there you go.
Absolutely.
So this one worries me because I think I might have been on a raft in the Allegheny River. I'm trying to remember.
Oh boy, you fucked. Actually, you're not fucked. You're alive. You're very lucky.
Yeah. Well, and I think it prefers smaller prey. So,
right.
This giant prehistoric turtle was first reported back in like 1745. Now, the legend then suggests a 12-year-old boy was fishing with his family and was pulled underwater by this creature, never to be seen again.
Can I interrupt real quick and say that when you talk about this thing, I just keep picturing Toka from Secret of the Ooze.
Like, I keep thinking of Bowser, because, like, if you look at it in Fallout 76, it's got the big old spiky shell, and it's kind of walking up.
Oh, right.
But no, like, it definitely Toka. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You might remember Toka, the knockoff Bebop and Rocksteady monsters they had.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Big turtle one.
Toka and Razor.
Yeah.
Now, there have been many rumored sightings, but a particularly notable one occurred in the 1980s. The Fairmont Times reported on an incident involving one John White at Paw Paw Creek near Reevesville. Some of these fucking names, dude.
Paw Paw Creek, that's where the Paw Paw Bears come from.
There you go. Like something out of a horror film, he saw waves underwater and fish swimming away from the disturbance about like 30 feet away. He would then see what he described as a fin and a reptilian tail. Other sightings have included details of like serpent-like heads or long flat tails, which it could just be like gator sightings. I don't know if the Ohio and Allegheny rivers get alligators.
I don't know, but I'm willing to wager this has something to do with Roger Corman.
I'm pretty sure alligators end up wherever the fuck they want to be.
That's
like,
true.
I was at work, right? And I was
at the liquor store.
At the liquor store. I was taking some stuff to the garbage, and there's a lake behind the store. Oh, a pond. Yeah, it's a pond, not a lake, a pond. But it had a kind of like a weir built, like a little dam that was, meant for if the pond got too full, it would let water run out into this like kind of storm drain setup that went under the roadway and towards the river. One day I'm like scanning in the rear access gate to get in so I could take the shit to the dumpster, and I look over to this little storm drain area below the weir. There's a fucking alligator in it. And he just like kind of swimming, and it's a dead end. It literally goes nowhere because, he'd have to climb over this little dam to get into the pond. So I'm like looking at him going, what the fuck are you doing, alligator? He like slowly starts backing up into the storm drain to go backwards. But
Jesus Christ.
Alligators just go wherever the fuck they want.
Right? Jesus Christ. So yeah, like, like alligator snapping turtles are very scary. Like they're big. They're big and they're mean.
Oh yeah. I've seen the little bastards.
Yeah, so like a 500-pound alligator snapping turtle, like as far as cryptids go, entirely plausible.
And awful.
Yeah, and awful. So, again, this is like a West Virginia regional thing. It's in that sphere of like just big animal cryptids. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what makes it a cryptid? Big. So
yeah.
The Yuga is a great example of Fallout 76 sticking to the theme and flavor of the Appalachian setting. In the game, the Yuga appears to be a giant snapping turtle with like a thick spiked shell and the profile of a gorilla, just kind of like walking on four limbs, like the two front limbs are longer, like literally just throw a Koopa shell on the back of a gorilla and you kind of got what this thing is. So four limbs in a semi-upright position. Appears to be like 8 or 9 feet tall.
You're kind of talking about Gamera a little bit.
Yeah, no, like there's definitely a cryptid vibe, or not cryptid, kaiju vibe here, especially.
Yeah.
So speaking of like, what's cooler than cryptids fighting, right? So,
right. Yeah,
so
totally.
In the game, the Yuga is a wanderer in the swampier regions and seems to have attracted the attention of Mothman cultists who wish to sacrifice it, right?
Okay.
They consider the blood of the beast to be ancient, powerful, and possibly a gateway to visions of the past. Like, all of this shit is explored in, like, computers and holotapes, right? Now, there are a couple of in-game events where the Yuga will make an appearance. In some random encounters, you may find a Yuga fighting another Appalachian cryptid, the Blue Devil. Now,
interesting.
And we'll talk about the Blue Devil in a minute. As for the origins of the Yuga, it was hard for me to find any like explicit references to their emergence in the setting of the game as it relates to the atomic bomb. But as we've seen with many of the 1950 and 1960s monster films, it's probably just a result of radiation, right? Mm-hmm. Again, we probably have a case of existing folklore made real by atomic mutation. Yeah, I think...
I think at this point, atomic mutation is the Fallout version of A Wizard Did It.
No, it definitely is.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that that's a thing. Like, anything can just be explained. Well, the other one is genetic experimentation, which leads us into our next cryptid.
Well, before we go there, and sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's, genetic mutation and then radiation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But, no, I found the river I went rafting on. And it's not that. It's the Yu-Gi-Oh! River. The Yu-Gi-Oh! River.
Time to duel.
It's Yu-Gi-Oh! I think I'm saying that right.
God, I hope we have...
No, river.
I hope our listeners really go after us for our pronunciation on this one.
Well, it's one of those things like I dare them to come down here and start saying our local, say
Buddha.
Say Natchez right, motherfucker. I dare you.
Yeah, say Biloxi right.
Look, there's all kinds of northern people whenever they're covering hurricanes and stuff. Yeah, they're saying Biloxi and Natchez.
Yeah. Most of our cities are like Spanish here, like Spanish.
Yeah, and there's enough culture covering California that we're kind of used to those pronunciations.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
whereas there's no real culture covering I'm trying to think of another weird name here in the state.
Arklabota?
Neshoba.
Well, I'm sure it's shown up on a couple episodes of Cops here and there. So,
maybe.
So, our
thanks a lot.
Yep, no problem.
And the problem is I think all these words are Indian or Native American, I should say, in origin.
Yeah,
but just different, regions. Of course, there are different languages being spoken, and their pronunciations are apparently nowhere close to.
Oh, it's a bastardized version, yes.
What I'm saying is the pronunciations are also, or the words they use and their phonetic dialects are completely different from,
right.
northeastern tribes to, southeastern tribes.
Yeah, we have a lot of Spanish town names and a lot of Native American names for our towns down here.
Right.
So, like, if you ask me to pronounce the name of a place in California, I'll do a great job. But other than that, don't expect too much from me.
Noxapater.
Yes.
Gesundheit.
God, that's a weird one.
That's a town, Noxapater.
Okay, well, our next cryptid, however, is the Snallygaster.
Gesundheit.
Mm-hmm. It's one with some of the more interesting in-game lore that goes beyond just like atomic mutation. Now, have you gentlemen ever heard of the Snallygaster before?
Nope.
I have, mostly thanks to Jerome Clark's assorted books, and I don't really remember details. I just remember the name because once you hear Snallygaster, you never forget Snallygaster.
It sounds like a 80s cartoon sidekick.
Oh, it does sound like Snaggletooth.
Like, it's a great name for a cryptid, though.
And he talks like this.
All right, so I think the Snallygaster is worth like an episode on its own, but like I'm going to give us the basics here. First, the descriptions of the creature vary wildly, but many of the descriptions establish it as a chimera with bird and reptile characteristics. The Snallygaster originates from German immigrants in the Maryland area sometime around the 1730s, specifically in what is today Frederick County. Now, the community would tell stories of a Schnellergeist that features characteristics of a beak lined with razor-sharp teeth and tentacles attached to a body that has bird-like and reptilian characteristics. It was also said to drink blood.
See, I like the origin of the name. It's a bastardization of a German term, kind of like haint, which I grew up with. My mom would hear music and be like, "Oh, there's haints up walking around to this thing," and it's probably a bastardization of the word haunt, and it's deeply rooted in early African American culture, I believe. So I'm always fascinated by the origin of terms like that.
Yeah, and when we had covered the jackalope and some of the other like Southwest cryptids, we got a lot of similar terms like that.
Right.
So, it also just the way they describe the creature, it starts to sound like a game of yes and.
Yes, and it has tentacles.
Like they just kind of threw different parts of a creature in a hat and then just started pulling them out and assembling them.
You mean the way God made the platypus?
Exactly.
Right.
He was drunk. Anyway, in any case, it was said that the image of a 7-pointed star could keep the Snallygaster at bay, and from what I read, you can still see some buildings in that area that feature the 7-pointed stars painted on them.
Okay, not to get all nerd here, but there are a lot of barns along the eastern states that have symbols like that painted on them to scare off spirits. And for a monotheistic bunch, early American Christians believed in a hell of a lot of spirits and other gods.
Right? Kind of weird. So
a little bit.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of history and folklore I'm going to save for another time regarding this cryptid, but there have been resurgences of interest and sightings of it in the 19th and 20th centuries. Now, specifically, one of the more problematic elements of this cryptid is that there was a weaponization of this superstition pointed directly at the freedmen before and after the Civil War.
Oh, God damn it.
So I'm going to quote Colin Dickey, who wrote a wonderful article about this for Atlas Obscura. The Snallygaster was born of an unholy union of Germanic legends and racist scare tactics, the Wild Hunt and Night Doctors, Odin, and the Clan. But thankfully, its story did not end there. Its history reflects the durability of American folklore for both good and ill. The Snallygaster's lack of any kind of definite form may be what has allowed it to persist, adapt, and teach. Maybe someday soon it will fly again over western Maryland with a whole new shape. Now, the presence of the Snallygaster in Fallout is a bit of a unique case here. This is not a creature associated with Appalachia historically. Again, this thing is usually tied to Maryland, right? However, German immigrants were a major part of the settling of the region, and it is a Germanic legend, so I think we're okay here. After all, you have that Fasnacht, which is, I forget, I think it's Swedish immigrants? I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that's a whole thing. Right. There's a large kind of European community.
And I feel like, that sort of stuff, it spreads.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we mostly seem to associate it with Maryland, but was it something that was known in the wooded hills of Appalachia? Absolutely, I guarantee you.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what sets the Fallout Snallygaster apart from the Mothman and the Yuga, however, is that the origins of the species are documented in great detail in Fallout 76.
Really?
Yeah, so in the game, you can find logs at a West Tech research center. West Tech will be a familiar name for fans of the series. At this research center, you'll find that experiments with the FEV, or Forced Evolutionary Virus, resulted in 2 species, one being the Grafton Monster, a minor cryptid we won't be getting into, and the Snallygaster. Now, the in-game Snallygaster is a chimera featuring 6 limbs, a long neck, and a long lashing tongue. The creature can spit balls of acid and has rows of eyes that trail along its back. Now,
Neat.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Like, these creatures are cool as shit, like, when you run into them, except when there's, like, 4 or 5 of them attacking you, and you don't have your power armor on. Now, as we can see, the in-game depiction of the Snallygaster is different from the more accepted features associated with its folkloric counterpart, but some elements are consistent enough to see why Wasteland survivors may have made that connection. Now, an image of a more traditional Snallygaster can be found in the game on a seasonal event board depicting a creature with the body of a snake, the head of a chicken, a single red eye, and tentacles emerging from the beak. However, many of the smaller cryptid references are also found on this board as well. There was like an entire cryptid hunting season event. Now, the main thing to mention here is that this is one of our first cryptids directly created by human experimentation in the setting. The others we've discussed so far have been like the side effects of atomic fallout, but this is a creature that is in line with other important Fallout experiments, such as like the super mutants and the death claws. So I just think that's cool.
Go back. Shut up. My phone won't shut up. Oh. Sorry.
No worries. But hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll cover our last handful of cryptids before we talk about aliens.
Yeah, we're going to go drown Mike's phone in the sink. It's fine.
Hey, man. What's got you off in your phone there?
Oh, just going through all the funny Mothman memes and supernatural shit posts I've been wanting to share. I just don't know where to put the posts yet.
Don't you know about the Supernatural Selection Discord?
We have a Discord?
Yeah, for years, dude. Where have you been?
Can people chat with the hosts and get previews of upcoming episodes and generally post funny shit as much as they want with other listeners?
I mean, if that's your bag. I mean, personally, I wouldn't do that, but there are even live streaming events for the shows there, too. You've been in a few. How do you not know this stuff?
It must have been my doppelganger. How do I get into the Discord?
It's easy. Just visit discord.supernaturalselectionpod.com. Now say that 3 times fast.
Well, that's perfect. Now I can share 3 terabytes of Hollow Earth memes. Get it? Terabytes.
Never mind. Forget I said anything. Just don't do that. You should definitely not visit discord.supernaturalselectionpod.com to join the Discord. We don't want you there.
Too late. I'm already posting my alien abduction fan fiction with the general chat.
Join the hosts and listeners of Supernatural Selection on the official Discord. Just visit discord.supernaturalselectionpod.com.
And we're back. So, gentlemen, how are we feeling about the way Fallout is adapting folklore and myth into its setting?
It's the same way I would want to do it, so of course I'm jealous.
Yeah, what do you think, Mike?
I have not, like I was saying, I haven't really ran into these in the game yet, so this is all kind of, secondhand. Mm-hmm. It seems fine. But I do want to say that, hopefully we can stop talking about the smelly gasser. Because I think that brings up bad school memories for Kevin.
Shut up. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, there should be no more smelly gasser because Kevin took his bathroom break, so.
Would you shut up? And it wasn't a Christmas tree, goddammit.
Hey, we didn't bring that up.
I know.
You're the one who brought it up.
Yeah, but I was listening to that earlier this week, and I was like, fuck you, David.
Well, up next, we have a somewhat unique take on the Sasquatch.
Oh.
I assume there are Sasquatch or Bigfoot sightings in, the Blue Ridge Mountains and that sort of thing.
It'd have to be.
And, the Sasquatch requires no detailed introduction here. Even if you've not listened to our show, you know of the Sasquatch, Yeti, Skunk Ape, Bigfoot, Ghost Monkey. It's the most normcore of the cryptids.
Normcore.
And arguably the most believable of the creatures we're talking about tonight.
Mike can agree to that.
Like, it's the most plausible. Maybe the Yuga as well.
Yeah, because they'd just be overgrown.
Yeah, big turtle.
Turtle.
So it could have been a thing where Bethesda could have just made a hairy super mutant and called it a Sasquatch in the setting. It would have worked, but they went a step further. Bethesda blessed us with the Sheep Squatch. Now, believe it or not, the Sheep Squatch is a cryptid that has been reported in numerous counties in West Virginia. Sometimes known as the White Thing.
That's what they call me sometimes.
Exactly. This cryptid is woolly and has been seen mostly in the areas of Boone, Kanawha, Putnam, and Mason, with the most recent flap having occurred in the mid-1990s.
Now, I actually knew about this one beforehand because there's this whole new branch of Sasquatch in the world, and I cannot wait for them to add the Bat Squatch.
Well, we do have the giant, they call them Scorch Beast in the game, but they're just giant 30-foot bats. But yeah, Jesus. You're talking about like an actual like bipedal.
Yeah. It's a Bigfoot with bat wings, basically.
Hell yeah.
Well, Bigfoot has to be careful. If he, gets too much, current foods, he'll be the fat squatch.
Well, it's better than the fat squatch.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, man. All right. So, I haven't had much time to dive into the history of this creature, but I at least wanted to provide some examples of some sightings and that sort of thing. I need to do more research on it, but the most recent sighting I've read about is said to have been in 2015.
Wow.
Now, all I have to work with here is some Reddit posts and a wiki entry, so we'll just kind of leave it at that for now. This is one of those where it's like, there are some cryptids where you can find a lot of information on them, and there are some that are a little bit more obscure, and this is a little bit more on that obscure side of things. Now, the sheep squatch itself is a fun, more obscure way to fill that niche of the bipedal hominid in a game full of cryptids, right?
Right. It's unique to the area.
Yeah. I mean, there are still references to Bigfoot and the like, but, there is no Sasquatch in Fallout 76, only Sheep Squatch.
I love the name.
Yeah, we're eating mutton tonight, boys.
Oh, God.
Now, in Fallout 76, you can find them in the wild. There is also a quest line you could pick up by finding a poster of the cryptid that reads, "Sheep Squatch ate my brother."
What the fuck?
And it puts you on the trail of several cryptids following the findings of pre-war cryptid hunters. You actually find there's like a literal bat cave assembled by a cryptid hunter.
Oh my God.
You find all of his notes and shit. Like, Kevin, this is the most you thing ever. It's fantastic. Like, you'll follow the trail of all these things. The whole storyline, though, culminates with a public event featuring a battle against an assaultron wearing sheepskins.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, the guy tried to create like a sheep squatch to find other sheep squatches with a mating call and pheromones, and then it killed him and went crazy in the wild.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So, like, that's about all I have on the sheep squatch. Like, again, it's that bipedal hominoid niche you kind of have to have when you're dealing with cryptids. But instead of just giving us a big monkey, they gave us a big sheep.
The sheep squatch.
Yeah, no, and it's great. And they're pretty fearsome looking, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I saw one out in the wild, and I hesitated to go after it, and then it saw me and came after me anyway. So, all right.
I'm looking up some of these that I haven't seen before to get an idea of what they look like in game.
Yeah, and like they're cool looking.
Oh my god!
Right. It's like the Wampa from Star Wars: Empire Strikes Back.
It's like a cross between a tauntaun and a Wampa.
Yeah.
Wow. Fuck that thing.
Yeah. Now, just imagine again. You're just kind of like wandering the ash heap, and then all of a sudden you hear a noise, and you see that thing like huddled over a couple of bodies, and then it like gets up, looks at you, and runs towards you.
And it's voiced by Jim Brewer. Anyway.
So, up next we have the Blue Devil. Now, the Blue Devil is another West Virginia cryptid. We touched on it earlier when we discussed the Yuga.
I will not lie, I'm not familiar with this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's like, again, this is like really paying attention to the region with their creature selection here. Now, the Blue Devil traditionally is of that genre of giant animal cryptids, and in this case is a giant wolf.
Oh, lovely.
Specifically, this creature was most notably sighted in the winter of 1939 and 1940 in Webster County.
That's interesting.
Described as a large, bluish, dog-like creature that was, quote, larger than a pony, and apparently prowled the countryside emitting a ghostly howl. Now, newspaper coverage of the sightings from the more urbanized Charleston treated the sightings as a joke despite some evidence of, like, slaughtered livestock. They're, making fun of the yokels with it and everything like that.
Right.
Now, for many of the time, the prevailing theory is that these incidents were the work of panthers in the region.
Sounds like a chupacabra.
Well, and then I was also thinking about, like, again, we've discussed, like, the possibility of panthers as a cryptid in a couple different regions,
including
in the
Mississippi.
Part. Exactly. So I thought of that, and I'm like, that's very, very interesting. It wouldn't be far-fetched for, like, some panthers to be as far up as West Virginia.
Sure.
In the 1940s.
Sure, yeah, no, that's totally a thing. You know, eventually we're going to have to cover the alien big cats in the UK.
Ooh, that'll be a fun one.
Yeah.
Now, as for Fallout 76, the Blue Devil is portrayed as being like a werewolf in form. Largely bipedal and dog-like with signature blue fur. In-game logs from Clyde, a cryptid hunter, suggest they may have originated from dogs bred for racing and hunting prior to the Great War.
Santa's little helper, no!
Right, I don't know if they're necessarily greyhounds, but they yeah, like, here's the thing, like, the other thing is, like, Clyde in his log suggests the proximity of the species to a specific location may account for their size and presence, but he never reveals what that location actually is. My theory is in the south, further south on the map, there is a very large nuclear disposal site. That has these, like, and this is based on a real life thing where you have this, like, jutting, spiky architecture that makes people uncomfortable and makes the place look dangerous.
Oh, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also the whole that this is not a place of honor.
Yes. So that's my theory about, like, where the Blue Devil may originate, but we just don't know.
Okay. And also, I just looked it up, and it kind of looks like they were making the game and we're like, hey, we've still got the werewolf model from Skyrim.
Yeah. And it just so happened that West Virginia seems to be really fucked up with imaginary creatures.
Yeah.
So, hey, win-win for everybody. Work doesn't go to waste.
Yep.
Now, fans of Fallout are no strangers to giant mutant dogs, and in-game lore suggests that the Blue Devils are just another form of mutated dog. specifically evidence of their breeding in the wild results in like very few healthy pups, which to me suggests lingering effects of radiation on their genes. Because we're only like 20 years out from like the bombs. The bombs, right? But radiation has been affecting the U.S. for over 100 years in the setting because of these disposal sites and the fact that everybody's car has a nuclear engine and shit like that. But like, it just seems to me like this is a creature that's still kind of evolving and adapting to all of this, and that's why, you know, a lot of the pups are like stillbirths or whatever. Now,
you know, one thing did just dawn on me. You know, if there's a high-speed collision of cars in the Fallout universe, it's way worse than a Pinto.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like at least 3 Pintos.
Yeah. You could also, I could also say that probably, you know, when the cars were fairly new, they might have been more stable. They've been kind of like, you know, deteriorating for decades or a century, depending on which game.
But this is also like a setting where like even children's toy blocks that are made of wood have lead in them. So like I can't trust the engineering of Fallout America here. Well, so you know, aside from dog-like characteristics, they remind me a lot of the Deathclaws, which is just probably another in-universe example of that predatory niche being occupied. We don't see Blue Devils outside of Fallout 76, however, so they were probably an extremely regional predator or outcompeted by the Deathclaws, which we know are mutated Jackson's chameleons in the setting.
Did you know that, Mike? Because I didn't know that.
I don't know. I watched like a 2-hour thing on like Deathclaws on YouTube.
No, that's fine. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't know that I knew that.
Yeah, no, and it doesn't look like it at first, but like, again, because this thing is like so horrifically mutated, but like when you go into the lore of the game and everything like that, it's, oh, okay, yeah, the U.S. government was trying to create chameleon super soldiers to fight the Chinese.
Jesus Christ.
Like, and I shit you not, that is the literal origin of the Deathclaws.
Fuck.
This setting's so fucking fantastic, you guys. I love it.
Yeah.
So, up next, we have another one that really doesn't need much of an introduction, which is the Wendigo.
Woo!
Fallout 76 presents a unique take on the Wendigo that is also very much in line with the nature of the folklore. We mostly know the Wendigo in our world from Algonquin folklore, but it's, of course, several other tribes have similar legends. Now, the legend is that it is a winter spirit that like stalks and eat humans, or it may be a manifestation of human greed that turns people into cannibals. We're going to cover them in a future episode for sure.
Yeah, we're also going to cover its relationship to the Hulk and Wolverine.
Hell yeah.
That's going to be badass.
Fuck yeah. So, you know, traditionally, Wendigos are described as emaciated humans with like ash-colored flesh. Their size can range as high as like normal human size, maybe a little squatter, to 15 feet tall. And it's said that in some legends they grow with the more flesh that they eat.
Now, the description you just gave of the emaciated human with ash-colored flesh, it and something else you say later in the doc reminds me of the Rake. The modern cryptid. You know, there's that famous photoshopped image of a trail cam of some of the Rake running at the camera. It's an emaciated ash-colored human with no lips and glowing eyes.
It was probably just a fucking Wendigo, you know what I mean? Like that's what they're going for. They just kind of spun it off into its own thing.
Oh, I thought you meant it just captured a Wendigo on film and somebody made up the Rake around it.
Like, that may be the case. You never know. Like, do we really ever know?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So, but like, again, like we see similar creatures across all sorts, like when we talked about La Llorona, different kinds of wailing women across different cultures, the Wendigo being one thing, and then you have like whites in Europe.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about Norwegians, I'm talking about like WIGHTS whites.
Right, like a barrow white.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, sometimes the Wendigo are described with like sunken, glowing eyes, with large yellowed teeth and claws. In many descriptions, it's said that their lips are chewed off. They're the whole thing is a lot of the metaphor seems to be about like being greedy in a time where you need to share with your community,
right?
Because it's a winter creature, right? They are sometimes described as having pointed ears and are sometimes said to have horns or antlers. Which, like, today, people kind of confuse Wendigo for, like, they have, like, these deer cryptids, these deer monsters, and they say, oh, yeah, it's a Wendigo. Well, no, not quite. Now, Wendigo sightings are often said to begin with the sweet smell of rotten flesh. Now, there is a lot of history and folklore of the Wendigo that I cannot do justice to in this episode. So for now, I'll just kind of emphasize that they tend to be gaunt cannibals that can read as representations of greed and gluttony that stalk the snowy wilderness. We are absolutely going to cover them later, for sure.
I feel like we should do them and the Skinwalker in an episode.
I think you could do an episode for each of them, to be honest.
That's
There's so much going on with the Wendigo, so much going on with the Skinwalker.
True.
Now, as for Fallout, undead adjacent beings are all over the franchise.
Oh, yeah.
The iconic ghouls are the most obvious, ranging from extremely mutated humans who resemble corpses to the feral ghouls, who are humans who have gone insane and violent due to a combination of radiation, chemicals, and the pressures of the wasteland. Now, one theory I read, and I can't track down the source for it, but I love it, was that the ghouls of the wasteland were a result of the unique combination of radiation and chemical preservatives in pre-war America. Like, if you look at the pre-war artifacts and foods, it becomes a libertarian fever dream of unregulated chemicals and substances such as lead and asbestos. Like, you could pick up in-game children's toys and scrap them to harvest lead. Like, hell, even pre-war board games have uranium in them.
Yes.
So the idea that some humans had the right cocktail of preservatives that allowed them to absorb the radiation and mutate into ghouls makes a lot of sense to me.
I mean, you pick up like boxes of Instamash that have been sitting there for 100 years, and
they're fine.
They're not fine. They're irradiated, but otherwise they still nourish you. They just give you rads as well.
Now, I want to throw out there that there's another theory that I prefer, and that's a person becomes a ghoul from radiation due to possible genetic traits, since it doesn't appear to happen to everyone when exposed to massive radiation. It also, that theory may have some water due to a mini quest in Fallout 4 because it seems to run in families.
Well, and I think the answer might be a combination of our two, because genetic traits, like what could have fucked with the genes of these people, right? What
Fair.
Sort of like 100 years of exposure to radiation and chemicals affecting the genome of the human being passed down, like that also works.
Yeah, because sorry, go ahead, Mike.
You can say, or it could be, in this dystopian, Fallout pre-war universe, who's to say what they're actually giving you in, say, vaccines and things.
Oh God,
they're obviously fucking with people's genetics and stuff in the vaults. Who's to say there wasn't like some widespread fuckery with people's genetics, even before that?
And that is absolutely a thing that goes on in the setting. The MK Ultra program of Fallout 76. I forget what it was called, but you find logs in Fallout 76 where the acting president at the time had done this order to people who were expressed to have communist sympathies were to be picked up and experimented on. And communist sympathies also included like wanting more money for the work you do.
Or union.
Yeah, or union interest. So it's a dystopia. It's a horrifying dystopia. And the idea that people may have been experimented on to become ghouls totally makes sense as well.
I mean, the FEV didn't come out of just nowhere, You had to be working on it pre-war, too.
Yep. Well, that's definitely, it was a pre-war thing, yeah.
Yeah, because they were trying to create the super soldiers, and that's how you get the super mutants.
Right.
So, undead adjacent. Like, the ghouls aren't truly undead. They're just incredibly fucked up humans.
Yes.
Now, in Fallout 76, we get Wendigos as well. Now, one series of clues presented in the game leads to the potential progenitor of the in-game Wendigos as being a former raider known as Morris Stevens. His raider gang, the Gormons, were cannibals.
That's a terrible joke.
Right? And it appears that as the leader, he may have been the worst of them, having violated the Gormon code of never eat your own.
Son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm. So in the game, you could find this progenitor Wendigo in a cave, which is implied to be Morris. And as for the spread of Wendigos in the settings, I am not sure if Morris reproduced or if they are simply a variation of feral ghouls. The game isn't really clear on that. Now, the in-game raid boss Earl Williams, which it's a weird name for a raid boss, right? Earl Williams.
Name's Earl.
Horrifying, absolutely horrifying. Still haven't killed him yet. Is another Wendigo, and again, it is noted that he was a cannibal before the transformation took hold. So one could theorize that it could be much like the potential origins of the ghouls. Whatever combination of chemicals and radiation that caused the mutation could possibly have been created by consuming human flesh. Now, in-game, Wendigos can be seen behaving almost as if they're like alpha ghouls among the feral populations.
Like a glowing one.
Yeah, or because again, they're very distinct looking from the ghouls. The ghouls look like burn victims, right? Yeah, but the Wendigo is like traditionally, like it looks like a traditional folkloric Wendigo.
Yeah, it's all emaciated and shit.
Maybe the Wendigo is like a prion disease, kind of like mad cow.
Which would be super interesting, right? Yeah. Now, and I couldn't even get into like the troglodytes of Pittsburgh in this either, because that could be another example of the same kind of thing. Because you have in Pittsburgh in the game a population of feral cavemen-like creatures called troglodytes that are mutated humans who, it's wild. There's so much going on here. And it might be the exposure to all the chemicals and the steel manufacturing of Pittsburgh in the setting. So, I love, how deep they go with this stuff.
Man, Billy Joel's Allentown takes on a whole other...
Now, we have one final cryptid we'll mention, which is the Jersey Devil. Another icon of the cryptid world.
I didn't know they'd put him in the game, because I was just telling Mike, man, they ought to do one up in Jersey and have the Jersey Devil.
Yeah, they did an entire content season that was about Atlantic City and dealing with the remnants of the mafia and shit like that. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. And we're going to cover the Jersey Devil at some point in the future. But what do you guys know about it?
Oh, what do I know about the Jersey Devil?
Yeah.
You're going to tell the story, but I know pretty much everything about the Jersey Devil.
Yeah,
everything that there is to know, Mike.
That's fair.
I mean, I know the basics, not the
broad strokes, right?
Yeah.
I did have him as a creature in one of my Call of Cthulhu games. Made him very sympathetic.
Yeah, no, the Jersey Devil is one of those, if we were doing a big three, I feel like the Jersey Devil would be thrown right up there right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are a couple variations, but the Jersey Devil that Fallout draws inspiration from is the Leeds Devil, associated with the Pine Barrens of South Jersey. Now, the Leeds Devil story boils down to, in the 18th century, a woman named Jane Leeds had 12 children, and upon discovering she was pregnant for a 13th time, cursed the child and declared that he'd be a devil. As these stories go, the child was born and was seen to transform into a creature with hooves, the head of a goat, bat wings, and a forked tail. The child then flew up the chimney and would haunt the Pine Barrens forevermore. Another version suggests that Jane Leeds was a witch and the devil was the father of the child. We haven't even gotten to the Native American origins of the Jersey Devil, but we'll save that. Now, needless to say, there have been plenty of sightings and a lot written on the Jersey Devil. It has also emerged as one of the only positive things people can appreciate about New Jersey.
Blah, blah.
So, in Fallout 76, if we're noticing the trend here, the Jersey Devil appeared as a creature in the Atlantic City update of the game, and the in-game depiction of the creature seemed pretty comparable to the folkloric version. Specifically, it is this kind of reptilian creature with a goat-like head and horns, with a long barbed tail, and a spiny frill around its neck and running down its back. You know, the frill kind of goes from the arms up over the neck, and then there's a frill that runs on the back. So you can see that as like the wings, right?
Right, yeah. And I honestly, I looked up a picture when you described that, and the version I'm familiar with much more closely matches your earlier description. And I'm just going to go ahead and put a picture in the doc here, and if you want to take a look, this cute fella.
Yeah, it's such an icon.
He's such a cutie.
Yeah, like I love the Jersey Devil. I love the Jersey Devil.
Smiling.
Yeah, poor little guy. So
he's a fun little dude.
But you know, like the Fallout 76 thing is like, what if we tried to make the Jersey Devil but real?
Yeah, and horrifying.
Yeah, and it's fucking awful. It's fucking scary. So continuing the franchise theme of humanity doing the dumbest fucking around and finding out imaginable, the blood of the Jersey Devil and its lesser devil offspring in the game is a potent hallucinogen, and the surviving mafia of Atlantic City produce potent drugs from the devil blood.
Son of a...
Now, this also echoes some folklore about deals with the devil that emerge around the Jersey Devil. It's all very well thought out here. As for the origins of the devil, the game is less clear about where exactly they come from, but they fit the pattern and profile of a post-atomic horror mutated from an existing species.
Right.
Now, with that, we've covered several of the cryptids in Fallout, specifically Fallout 76. That leads me to two questions for you gentlemen. First, what is in the water in West Virginia?
TNT leavings.
Which, yeah, absolutely. Heavy metals, nitroglycerin, sweat.
Yep.
Yep. Second, do you think the cryptid elements of this game add something to the series that should be carried forward, or should they strictly remain kind of like an Appalachian thing?
Mike?
I mean, I don't see how it could hurt. I mean, I think in other settings you probably shouldn't have as many. But, Kevin was saying, any local stuff, could be addressed.
Yeah, because West Virginia, their cup runneth over with cryptids.
Yeah. That whole region is just like, y'all got a lot of weird shit going on.
What the hell goes on in West Virginia?
It's all the moonshining.
Again, what is in the water in West Virginia?
Get away from the TNT plant, kids.
But, it's my hope that, because inevitably we are going to get Fallout 5. And wherever they set it in the timeline and in the U.S., which technically would include Canada because the U.S. annexed Canada.
That's right.
In this fucking setting. So, whatever setting, I hope that they kind of keep that trend of okay, well, what are the regional legends and folklore and creatures, and let's try to integrate them in there. But I think it's a good
Australia.
Addition. Well, that's just Mad Max.
No, with the bunyip and the yowie.
I'm sure, if you gave George Miller all the money in the world, he would do that in a Mad Max film.
I really want to do that. I want to give him all the money in the world.
Right. But yeah, no, I think these are cool. We've talked about cryptids. So with that said, I think we'll take one more break and then we'll return with a discussion on aliens in Fallout.
Hey, Kevin here. Hope you're enjoying the episode.
Hey, who are you talking to, Kevin?
Listeners of our shows. I also want to let them know that if they're enjoying what we've been doing, they can support us on Patreon.
Oh, Patreon. Were you going to tell them about the early episodes? Also, Patreon exclusive episodes that can be found there too?
Well, yeah, I was going to do
yeah. And then there's the other cool stuff, including art, merch for subscribers, like tote bags, hoodies, shirts, mugs.
Yeah, and
can you believe people could support us for only $5 a month? You're definitely going to mention that too, right?
I was. Support Supernatural Selection and The Distraction Hole on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. Visit patreon.supernaturalselectionpod.com to learn more and get started today.
All right. Oh, no. Look at me. I'm the captain now.
Okay. You're the captain now.
Yes. So, all right. Welcome back before I was so rudely interrupted by our normal host.
I'm sorry.
Now, I think there was a fun pattern that emerged regarding the cryptids of Fallout. The idea that as wasteland horrors emerged, survivors began to associate them with pre-war stories, and within a couple of decades, it's like those cryptids have become a reality. Like that's I think we can all agree that's kind of like the angle they're going for there.
Which is neat.
Yeah, it's just neat. So, which I think I've said that several times, but that's the thing. It's just neat. Now, but the larger thing here is that there was no real evidence of these things existing in pre-war society, no more so than what the evidence we have of those things existing today. Mm-hmm. You don't have any living examples of pre-war species that could have been that cryptid. You know what I mean?
Mothman being a possible exception, but we'll talk about that some other day.
Yeah. What we do have in Fallout, however, are aliens and examples of pre-war appearances that carry through into the wasteland. There is direct observable evidence of aliens in Fallout. So let's talk about this a little bit.
Please.
So we'll start with another Fallout 76 example, and something we've covered on the show before, the Flatwoods Monster. Mm-hmm. Now, Kevin, can you give us a brief overview of the Flatwoods Monster?
Yep, big freak in an armored moo-moo surrounded by poo gas. No, seriously though, a strange alien floating around in a dress-like outfit, clawed hands, a round head with glowing red eyes, and a collar thing behind his head shaped like the ace of spades, and he's surrounded by a strange, stinging vapor, spotted maybe twice, but by multiple witnesses.
Yeah,
and again, probably an owl surrounded by poo gas.
Yeah, if you want to get like our coverage of the topic, just listen to the episode Owls and Poo Gas.
Again, yes, poo gas.
Yeah. Yep. So in Fallout, the Flatwoods Monster is a floating entity in a thruster-propelled spacesuit with a domed helmet that obscures its face beyond bright, glowing eyes. And go figure, you first start hearing about them in-game in the town of Flatwoods.
My God.
One of the locations near Flatwoods, Hillfolk Hot Dogs, carries which is based on a real place in West Virginia, carries some notes left by the pre-war owner Colton Pickens, which is such a Lovecraftian fucking name for a country hick. You know what I mean?
Colton Pickens saw the beast.
The sad demise of Colton Pickens. Yes. But he describes having been abducted and experimented on. And the police don't believe him, and then they later charge him with public drunkenness and lewd behavior.
So Randy Quaid.
Yeah, pretty much, All right, you alien assholes. All right, so...
Up yours!
Apparently, that they haven't stopped doing the abduction after the Great War either, as sometimes you can encounter these beings in the wilds of Appalachia. Now... Visually, the Flatwoods monsters in-game bear some similarities to the sightings of the entities in our world. Seemingly floating along the ground, the high collar of their suit behind their helmet also carries that spade-like shape, corresponding with depictions of them in various reports. They don't really have the moo-moo, but they have some sort of, suit that they're in.
Right. I miss the moo-moo, though.
Yeah, no, the moo-moo is high fashion. Let's keep the moo-moo, please. Curiously, they seem to be affiliated with the other known species of alien in the setting, the Zetans. In fact, if you can clip your camera through the mask of the Flatwoods Monster, you'll see that they share a similar model to the Zetans. Now, I don't think we should take model clipping as canon.
Why not?
But... Yeah, right. If we're doing the whole conspiracy thing, right? But it's certainly interesting. This is especially true in light of the Flatwoods Monsters being one of the aliens tied to the Fallout 76 event Invaders from Beyond. Now, in truth, the entities referred to as the Flatwoods Monsters may just be a subgroup within the larger Zayton group. Now, I don't really have a lot to add about the Flatwoods Monster beyond what Kevin's already kind of covered in our previous episode about it. And really, I am more interested in looking at them as a manifestation of a larger and more significant alien presence in the wasteland. So let's go ahead and turn our attention to the Zaytons.
Yeah. Now, there's actually, like, you can find, like, comic books and stuff with them on it in Fallout 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, the Zaytons are an alien species which has appeared in just about every Fallout game and has seemingly been involved with humanity for centuries. The first example of alien presence in the franchise, and likely the Zaytons specifically, was in the original Fallout, where the Vault Dweller can encounter a crashed flying saucer with two skeletons with extremely large skulls. Now, this is probably like a fandom retcon, but there is nothing to say that they are Zaytons, but they seem to line up with the detail of the Zaytons as they were formerly introduced in Fallout 3.
Right, which I remember finding the alien gun in Fallout 3, and that was pretty much. And then I hacked the thing so I could have more ammo.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Zaytons of Fallout are the basic 1950s, 1960s style little green men of popular culture and UFO stories. Their name is associated with the Zeta Reticuli binary star system, around 40 light years from Earth. This star system should have significance for UFO nerds, as a lot of UFO conspiracies about grays suggest that they hail from Zeta Reticuli.
And that, of course, comes from the Betty and Barney Hill abduction, which I still need to cover.
Yeah, but what about Omicron Persei 8?
Oh, that's Lur and Dinda. Lur from the planet Omicron Persei 8.
I love that guy.
Yes.
How's the family? Numerous and long-lived.
No, that's Morbo.
Morbo. Oh, sorry. Same voice, damn it.
Man.
Shit.
I ruined it.
I fucked it up. This is the first time I really fucked it up. I resign. All right,
yeah,
David, you're the host.
Keep going. Next, you're gonna confuse Elzar for Zoidberg. What the fuck are we doing here?
Oh God. Yep. Nope. Sorry. You're in charge, David.
Well, anyway, visually, they fit right in with the mid-20th century aesthetic that dominates the designs of the franchise, such as having, like, these large domed helmets. In fact, they share a lot in common with the B-movie appearance of the Martians from Mars Attacks.
I also kind of like Destroy All Humans, which that deserves a lot more love.
Yeah, Destroy All Humans is a fantastic video game.
I would just want a yodeling attack in Fallout to make their heads pop.
Oh my God, if you could play Indian Love Song.
I bet you there is a mod for that for Fallout 4.
Oh my God.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Oh my God. I gotta look for it.
You turn your Pip-Boy radio to a yodeling station.
Oh,
like if there are mods to put boobs on mole rats, there's got to be a mod for everything.
God, I hate that you reminded me of that.
Big mole rat milkers.
Oh, God, shut up.
So, there are a lot of moments in the games where you can encounter the Zaytons. In Fallout 4, for example, you can encounter a crashed UFO. If you follow the trail of green blood into a nearby cave, you'll encounter the crashed survivor who will attack you. You can then shoot it and take an alien weapon. Other alien weapons, and more notably power cells, can also be found in the game. That's probably more attributed to game balance and mechanics than a suggestion of a wider Zayton presence in the wasteland, but it's still kind of interesting to know, right?
Right.
Like, with that said, though, both the Enclave and chapters of the Brotherhood of Steel have collected and studied recovered Zayton technology and weapons. There's implications that a lot of the Enclave's technology may have been reverse engineered from Zayton artifacts.
I got thoughts about that later.
Yeah, but who the hell knows? It's just a video game. Relax.
Right.
With that said, the Zaytons had their most significant in-game role in Fallout 3, specifically in the 2009 add-on titled Mothership Zeta, which provided a lot more information about the Zayton involvement with Earth prior to the Great War. Now, that add-on revealed a few interesting things. First, that there was still very much an active presence of Zaytons in the Earth sphere as of 2277. Further, that the Zetans had been observing and abducting humans since at least the 17th century.
Goddamn.
Among the abducted passengers you find being held in cryostasis is a samurai named Toshiro Kago. There's also a cowboy, an astronaut, and some pre-Great War soldiers, too. It's a lot of fun. And it's great because when you try to talk to the samurai, he speaks Japanese. You cannot communicate with him.
Right.
Yeah,
I remember that.
It's great. It's so great.
Made it to the mothership, unfortunately.
So, with the aliens, they are undoubtedly canon to Fallout. You can't ignore them.
Mm-hmm.
But they're unlike the cryptids, because in this setting there is direct observable evidence that they existed prior to the Great War. You have the 1950s style like magazines and stuff that depict them. You have logs where people have, talked about studying their technology, right? This isn't a situation where a new creature emerges that reminds survivors of folklore and is named after myth. Like, I don't have any more significance to this train of thought other than, I just find it neat.
I would love to know the details of the Fallout version of Roswell.
It feels like New Vegas. If they ever do a follow-up to that, that would be absolutely perfect for that.
Well, you do find the crashed ship in New Vegas, and there's like 3 or 4 of the guys alive.
Yeah.
And but that's only if you have the Weird Wasteland perk. Otherwise, it's just some raiders.
Yeah, but again, these guys are all over. And I want to emphasize here that I've only begun to scratch the surface regarding the supernatural and weird side of Fallout that corresponds with what we do here on this show. In my initial outline, I also wanted to bring up ghosts, elder gods, Indrid Cold, all of which are things found in the larger Fallout setting, but we've gone off for a long time here.
And I was going to say, there's so many Lovecraft references in the game. Dunwich Borers, there's a serial killer named Picton. Again, check out Epic Nate's stuff if you want more information on that until David gets forced to do another episode about this.
Honestly, we could probably do another episode. But, ultimately, the appeal of Fallout is pulp. All of these monsters and aliens fit well with the Atomic Age wasteland punk elements. The presence of superheroes, elder gods, and mutants fit right in alongside everything else, right? Because we have actual superheroes that exist in the Fallout universe as well.
The Antagonizer and the Mechanist.
Or the Maiden of Mysteries in Fallout 76. There's an entire quest line where you get...
The Silver Shroud.
Yeah, the Silver Shroud, which you could literally cosplay as the Silver Shroud and have the most hilarious fucking lines in the game.
Possibly the greatest part of that game is dressing as a Silver Shroud and staying in character.
Yeah, exactly. So, the larger point I want to kind of pull out of this, I think we can learn a lot about society through stories about monsters. And with games like Fallout being a way of telling these stories, I think we could easily spend some time analyzing how the game approaches them. Thematically, at the very least, this is an element of mankind creating their own monsters through hubris and overconsumption that is echoed by all the cryptids we mentioned. They're all a result of human activity, some more direct than others. So when mankind fucks up and these creatures emerge, those patterns persist and these new threats are given these old names. But then, on the other hand, with the Zetans, we have this idea that as much as humans are responsible for their misery in Fallout, there are outside forces as well. And it's a deeply uncomfortable thing. We've made things so bad, but there's something that could probably make things worse out there as well. So, gentlemen, what are your thoughts about viewing the subjects of past and future episodes of the podcast through the lens of a video game series? Do you think this kind of approach is interesting and works for us?
Well, I mean, I'd say it's fine. Don't have to necessarily limit to video games either, because there's a lot of, other pop culture that has cryptid stuff and
we'll absolutely tackle Ghostbusters at some point.
So yeah, I think just pop culture in general, as it intersects with the supernatural, is fine.
I think so. The same way that, that's how we're going to end up doing any kind of true crime, is its relation to the 40 and subjects that we tackle. And also, I find this all really amusing. I mean, it's stuff that they know at Bethesda someone like me will get. And it's also fun watching fans pull their hair out and build conspiracy boards to try to figure out the deeper meanings of the Mothman cult, with me knowing full well Bethesda had as much planned as Ronald D. Moore did at the beginning of Battlestar Galactica, which is to say, none.
Right? Yeah, it was kind of fun. And again, I had intended this to be a very, very quick thing, right? It was just this is gonna be a fun one. We'll look at some of the cryptids and Fallout, and then 40 fucking pages later, just but I also as much as I'm joking about that, I love that we can pull so many things that interest us and that are in our wheelhouse just from this one video game.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that the video game approaches it is super interesting, and it has its own little message to convey.
Yeah.
Obviously it's gameplay first and fun first, but you can get more out of it than that.
Yeah, and the lesson, of course, is don't irradiate shit.
Yeah, no, don't put lead in your children's toys.
Yeah, motherfuckers. China.
Keep the lead out of the gasoline.
Yeah.
Don't drop nuclear bombs all over the world.
Don't nuke my baby.
Don't let capitalism go unchecked.
Just don't capitalism.
Capitalism's fine as a treat.
I feel like we need a shirt. Don't capitalism.
Or a little or a little capitalism is fine as a treat sometimes. Yeah, as Mike said. Absolutely. But yeah, the fact that we can ascribe meaning to these clusters of pixels and polygons that are based on folklore is it's neat. I enjoy it.
It is, and I enjoyed it as well, and this was a fun episode, so thank you for that, David.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to have done it.
Yeah, so in the future, we've got, a couple more Weekend Weirds coming. I've got an episode coming up. I think it's going to be more anomalous people.
Okay.
And after that, I think I'm going to try to tackle Betty and Barney Hill finally.
Okay, I've got to figure out what the fuck I'm doing.
Okay, because I found I have a copy of The Interrupted Journey now.
Ooh, okay.
Which is their book. So I've got that, and I have on Blu-ray 4K the UFO Incident, which is the adaptation of that book starring the now late James Earl Jones as Barney Hill.
R.I.P.
Yep, R.I.P. to our man. Again, Mississippi native, Archibald, Mississippi. And, yep. Anyway, I enjoyed this. Mike, you have fun?
Sure, yeah.
Just like Mike's response was always, sure.
Meanwhile, you just hear me scratching my bingo card.
Yeah, God damn it. So, thank you everyone for listening. If you would like to learn more about the show, head to supernatpod.rocks. That is supernatpod.rocks. You can find a link to our Discord, our Patreon, our store, every episode of this show and the Distraction Hole, and our contact form, where you can get in touch with us, ask us questions, or advertise with us for $2 a show. We have several spots available. So, we will see you guys next time for a Weekend Weird. So until then, stay safe and stay frosty. Goodbye.
So why don't you crawl out through the fallout back to me?
My favorite Fallout.
That is his favorite song. Mine is probably
Butcher
Pete. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing like crawling around playing Butcher Pete and shooting something in the head with a sniper rifle.
I don't know, man. Having Wouldn't It Be Nice playing during Fallout 76 as you're blasting away ghouls is pretty great.
Wait, like Beach Boys?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Oh my
Wouldn't
God.
it be nice? It fits so well, dude.
Nice if we were older. Well, there goes our copyright. All right.
Orange colored sky.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Wham, bam, Alakazam.
So this is a Fallout podcast. From now on. Okay, cool.
Ooh, we finally transcended.
Yep.